one of the things that Penn was talking about last night, was his connection to the atheist community. And, he was talking about in his show Bullshit how he got a lot of mail from the religious crowd. And instead of highlighting the real negative and hateful comments from religious people, he tried to highlight the more positive messages. So, how do you feel about that approach to it? Hello, I'm the Godless Engineer. You're about to watch some interviews that I conducted at Apostacon, and within these interviews are going to be multiple questions, and they're going to be broken up by subject. This first subject, as you already know, is people's feelings about how Penn and Teller want to promote the more amicable Christian messages that they get rather than the more hateful ones. I asked people about how they feel about that approach, and if you will, please go down below, leave me a comment on which approach or which opinion you loved more. I would really love to hear what you think about the subject. How do you feel about highlighting the more amicable Christian messages rather than the more hateful ones? Or do you have the reverse opinion that we should be highlighting the worse opinion? So either way, leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. So what do you think about that?
I think that their star power is definitely a boon for the atheist community. Just to have that name brand recognition, something they can associate with not necessarily a family-friendly comedy magic show, but still, they're not hated by any means.
Yeah.
They're very open. They're very personable. So that's what we need. That the standoffish don't want to mingle with the masses. That don't need that. We need somebody that can actually be out there in the crowd.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's kind of what I've wanted to do, with going to these conferences and whatnot, is being a lot more connected with just everybody in the community in general. And so that's why I'm having, not just big name people come on to, conference interviews like this, but, also more of the common man atheist. During the show last night with Penn and Teller, he talked about how he likes to not play up the evil, hateful comments that he gets from the religious crowd, but more the nicer and more amicable comments. How do you feel about that approach?
I agree. The more focus that you put on the negative, all you're doing is you're just bringing it to the forefront. Not all Christians are bad, like they said. You can hate the belief, but not the believer. There are good Christians, smart Christians out there, maybe a little diluted, but to emphasize the hate. It's the same with us. You can't emphasize that. It's counterproductive. You need to bring up the positive in the world, not just dwell on the shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in contrast, YouTubers or public figures like Dusty Smith like to really get out there and get you with eye-catching headlines, on their videos and whatnot. One coming to mind would be, I think it's Muslims Are Retarded is one of his last videos. Do you think that kind of, militant atheism, or maybe not militant atheism, but just aggressiveness, do you think that's kind of detrimental, or do you think that we should start playing that down more?
Well, yes and no. He's playing to a particular crowd. He has his followers, and that's who he's targeted to. As a whole, yes, I do think it's detrimental, because if somebody outside of his community were to see that, they would think, backwards, atheist, ignorant, no better than the Bible thumping fundies that we're dealing with. Calling a Muslim retarded. That'd be like calling you or me, fucking retarded.
Yeah.
happens.
It
happens,
all the time.
But you're not only slurring the Muslim community, you're slurring the mentally handicapped people. You're bringing all this into focus of one line, and it's a trigger. It really is. But it's what he's going for. So I mean, I understand what he's doing. But on a whole,
I don't know if you're very familiar with my approach, but I've done a few videos called "Atheists Need to Stop Being So Damn Hostile," "Not All Theists," things like that. So generally, I have the same idea when it comes to approaching the religious community. Usually, the reception that I receive is generally good. Like he said last night, you have a few crazies who obviously are mentally gone, and they want to relish in seeing us suffer and the thought of us going to hell and burning forever. But for the most part, that's not really what you see.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could say I generally have the same idea about it, but I'm still pretty much an anti-theist.
Right.
I can hate the religions because of what they propagate and what they put out there for the world and how it influences and hurts humanity. But that doesn't mean I have to hate the person. So what is it? It's hate the sin, not the sinner.
Yeah. Well, whatever a sin might be.
Which changes when you become an atheist.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about that approach?
Well, he's very famous and very sheltered. So he may not get the talks that me and you make from a lot of the religious people. I get a lot of negative from religious people. Now, I do think both sides are needed. I think the nice people are needed. The ones that will sit there and just say, "Yes, Mr. Christian," and then there's the assholes like me who will say, but I understand what he was saying. I truly get it. And he's cool. And it's just what he said about that was I can't remember exactly what I lost my train of thought. But yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, I don't know. It's pretty simple for me. Like, I'm not going to be one of those guys that just writes people off because, they are a particular belief or title or label or whatever distracting thing. I would just take them for what their words are. Like, if a theist approaches me and actually has some thoughtful criticism and wants to engage, regardless of, like, what fallacies they may or may not be committing, if they're genuine in their approach and want to have a conversation, I appreciate that far more than all caps. Like, you're a mean atheist, you need, Jesus. But, I don't know, I'm open for that too. I kind of find that entertaining.
Well, do you think that we should be more highlighting the nicer religious people rather than the ones that are all like, burn in hell?
I think we should do both. I don't see that there's a reason that we need to do one more than the other. I think both of them have reasons for, getting a little bit of the limelight, a little bit of exposure. So I see it as like more utilitarian. Let's get both representations in there.
Yeah, because I feel like if you start overcompensating with just showing the nicer religious people, then it's just going to be assumed that, all the religious people are nice to atheists, so quit your bitching.
Yeah, you don't want to distract from what the reality is. You want to get all the different walks of life, all the different approaches to that conversation, regardless of whether or not you think they're good approaches. They could be perfectly shitty approaches. To just show one particular approach is kind of like a Fox News, like, here, let's show how moderate we can all be. Like, look, everyone's nice, when really some people are fucking assholes.
Yeah, they're complete dicks. I've been getting a lot of them on my channel too.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on that approach.
Yeah, so there's a lot of conversations about this, about, where to focus and tone and everything else. Houston Oasis, there's several members of that group here. They have a T-shirt that says "People matter more than beliefs." I absolutely 100% agree with the intended sentiment behind that. It's pretty clear. I mean, but I do what I do because I care about people. I care about what kind of world we have. The funny thing is the statement on their shirt is in fact a belief. And you have to convince people of that belief before they would be convinced that people matter. So there's something self-defeating about it. And it doesn't matter one bit. This is me being the anal debater to make sure that the language that we put together when we're talking about the issues, is as accurate as possible. But we don't have to be that picky, because it's clear to everybody what the sentiment is, and it's something I agree with. If you watch the debate, so if you watch the Atheist Experience, I take several different approaches, not always nice. I try to make sure people get as good as they give. I try not to be the first person to go negative or whatever it is. But then if you watch me in like a big public formal debate, there's a different aspect. I would say a different persona, but that's not true. It's still me. It's a different aspect of my persona. And my goal in all of this is to have good conversations and to support a better world, more rational thinking, and to help people out. And the only time it gets nasty on the show is when the person on the other end is not willing to have that sort of conversation. Right. And I did a debate in Dallas against Blake Junta here recently. And he's great. And we had a good little hangout afterwards. We're talking about possibly doing some kind of podcast together where it's, here's an atheist and an atheist and a Christian having a conversation about where we disagree and why. I don't, with regard to Penn's remark, about focusing on, the good Christians, I don't think there's any question in anybody's mind that there are plenty of good people doing good things under any and every label. Christian, Muslim, whatever. I don't think it's necessarily negative to highlight problems. I think when you start talking about religious privilege, the preferential status that they get by default, and the sorts of negative things they do, I think that is a positive. Making people aware of the problems so that we can figure out how to fix them is a net positive. Because if you look at it the other way, if all you talked about was how Christians are really nice to atheists, and many of them are, nobody's aware that there's clearly any other problem. And if all you did was talk about the negative, nobody would be aware that there's anything. I'm positive. I'm not necessarily saying the truth lies somewhere in the middle, because I think that is crap most of the time. But we need firebrands and diplomats. We need people pointing out where we disagree. We need people pointing out actual harm. And we also need people working cooperatively. And the last couple of talks that I've given have been focused more on humanism. And the thing that I've kind of been pushing for is I would rather share the stage with the Reverend Barry Lynn from Americans United to talk about church-state separation than some atheists that I work with. I would also be happy to go up on stage and debate him about the God that he believes in. And I would be thrilled to debate, fundamentalists. Give me somebody from even Westboro. We need to cover all of it. And I think that if you have as a goal the betterment of the world, and have in your mind that you're going to address issues and not people, that there's not really this problem of, well, nobody's really talking about the nice ones, or everybody's talking about the bad ones. I think it kind of goes away when you have a clear goal that is positive. I'm saying you're going to fight cancer. That sounds negative. Let's eradicate polio. That sounds negative, but it's a positive thing.
Right. So I guess you're trying to emphasize, highlighting both of them, right? Both the good and the bad, and the more harsher, I guess, the harsher comments. But I really think that most Christians, in my experience, if they're the nice kind of Christians, like they're being very positive, they're not really commenting all that much, or they're not really engaging, because they have that very easygoing attitude about it. It's like, well, he believes this, and, that's him, kind of thing. And so they don't feel the need to spew to spew hatred or even comment in a very nice manner.
And it contributes to the problem too, because fundamentalists, while they will be nice when they have to, and they have as a goal, hey, I need to win these atheists to Jesus, and I'm not going to do that by being mean, all this other stuff. they end up offering comfort. Or the ones that are nice and okay, the liberal and moderates, they're not cleaning their own house. There's 1,000 denominations that identify as Christian, and they disagree on every point of doctrine you could possibly imagine. And there's a pastor here from a Methodist church who I just got done listening to. He's awesome. I think he's just about as close to an atheist as you're going to find, other than a pastor who I know is an atheist in a Methodist church in Austin. But if they're all identifying as Christian and they're all pointing to the same holy book and they don't agree on their beliefs, and this group is trying to be the nice group and they're nice to atheists, but they're not calling out Westboro, they're not calling out, the abortion clinic bombers, they're not calling out the people who are trying to impose their doctrine to deny other people rights, then I hate to say it because it's unfortunate because they're nice people, but they are part of the problem. They're enabling. They should stand next to us and say, yes, those people there, not only are they terrible, but they definitely don't represent the religion that I do. And when people realize that that's the case, then the next step is, okay, then why are both of you using the same Christian label and the same holy book? You guys got a lot of work to do to clean up your house. And I've said before, when I'm talking about Christianity, when I'm talking about the Bible, if what I say doesn't represent you, then clearly I wasn't talking about you. But if you guys are all going to use those same labels, you don't get to blame me if you get some paint on you while I'm painting the guy next to you, because you're standing too close.
Right. Yeah, it seems to me like Christians, or maybe not Christians, but just people in general, but when they apply that Christian dogma to themselves, it's like each one is individually different. And so when you start talking about the dogma in general and talking about the Bible in general, they seem to think, oh, well, that's not what I believe. That's not what my God says. It's like, oh, apparently you don't have the God of the Bible. How do you feel about that approach?
He's right.
Yeah?
I don't know what else to tell you. He's right. I mean, yeah, we have, at the foundation, we have Richard Reed's hate mail, but not so much to glorify the hate, but to more make fun of the hate. Because did you see the love letters video?
Yeah.
I mean, it's comical to when it gets to that level.
Yeah.
So having fun with it is one thing, but being like, oh, look how much hate mail we're getting, like he was saying. So I agree with him.
Yeah. Well, I know that, at least on social media, it's very popular to point out or highlight the negative comments that you get, like the burn in hells and all this other stuff. And so, I really like the idea of focusing on the positive aspects of the Christian population, because we are seeing a massive change right now. More progressive Christians, more Christians that are really acceptant of equality and whatnot. Because with the recent Kim Davis fiasco, it actually pushed the popular opinion of marriage equality.
I think it's good in the sense that it doesn't make everything that we do sound so depressing. Who would want to come out as an atheist if you thought everything you were going to do was going to get you hate mail and you were going to be sad all the time because no one liked you? It's good to know that even when you come out, you can still be accepted by everybody, and there are people out there willing to accept you. It makes the coming out process, I think, a little more comfortable if you don't think your entire community is going to turn their back on you. Yeah. So I think that's good. I think it kind of reminds us that they're people. We get wrapped up in the, let's bash Christianity, let's bash Islam, and we forget that there's our people behind that, and to an extent, they're victims of it. Mm-hmm. And we forget that these victims are actually good, hardworking, people. They care about other people, and not all do. Some aren't going to send hate mail. Some are going to be hateful, and it can be fun to highlight those. I love when I get really nasty messages, posting them online. Not so much to show how hateful people are, just to kind of show how ridiculous the concept is. They're telling me I'm going to hell. Do they really think that's going to land? Why are they telling me I'm going to hell? They know I don't believe in it. It's kind of an empty threat. So I think there's validity to both. I do think it is good to post the negative as well, because it is good to know who's out there. And some of the obstacles we are still facing. But I do think it's good to highlight the fact that it is getting better. Because getting better makes it more comfortable for others to be open and come out.
Yeah. I don't know if you know about the Vigilant Christian on YouTube
No,
at
I
all.
don't.
No? Okay. Well, basically, he's an Illuminati conspiracist, Christian type person.
Sounds awesome.
He spouts a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But, recently he posted this video about how Hitler wasn't Christian. And in it, he says that basically, it makes it out to be like a bulk of the atheist community purports like the Westboro Baptist Church or Hitler as like pinnacles of Christianity. Like those are the exact representations of Christianity. And so, I mean, I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about that? Like in the context of highlighting these these harsher comments that we normally receive.
To argue that atheists use Hitler or Westboro Baptist Church to kind of demonize Christianity is kind of ridiculous. I don't know of any atheist that kind of looks at Westboro Baptist and thinks that they are what Christianity is. They're a great example of what Christianity can be and the hatefulness that Christianity can create. But we know there are like 5 people from the South. They're not a big organization. They're a family organization. They're hateful. And most Christians, even evangelicals, often have spoken out against them. Because even they think it's too far, even if they don't agree with same-sex marriage, to go stand in front of a funeral of soldiers and say, God kills fag soldiers. That's not even language a lot of evangelicals would use, at least openly. And the Hitler thing, I've never once heard someone use the argument that Hitler did what he did because he was a Christian. I believe Hitler was a Christian because he says he was. Who am I to say that he's not if he says he is? He references God in his book. He referenced God in his speeches. God be with us, or whatever it was, is on the belt buckles. Like, these are all things that say, I'm a Christian. He met with the Pope.
Yeah.
I believe him. But I don't think his actions were driven by Christianity.
Right.
I don't blame Christianity for the Holocaust, because I think he had major other factors playing in there that had nothing to do with his religious belief. I don't think it had much to do with the Jews' religious belief per se. It was a large group that was in his way, he didn't like for whatever reason, and he persecuted and killed them. Well, he did many other groups, and I don't necessarily say, it's because he was Christian. In the same sense, I don't believe Stalin did what he did because he was an atheist. It's two sides. If they're going to use that Stalin was an atheist, so all atheists are guilty because of Stalin, then all Christians are guilty because of Hitler. And that doesn't seem like a fair argument, so it seems like one should be dropped.
Yeah, and I usually like using that reduction to the absurd often, just to point out. I actually have a character that I sometimes play is really Southern and hick, and it's absurd. So